Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. Every episode of PRAJNA SPARKS takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We ask that, if you haven't already, you give us some time today to like, subscribe, share, and review our podcast. Alongside your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners.
The three sublime principles that inform all Mahayana Buddhist practice are first, bodhicitta, the intention to benefit all beings, which grows out of our own reorientation of mind towards Buddhahood and our refuge in the three jewels, the emblems of our own inner Buddha nature. This is what starts the practice. Then the body of the practice, whatever it may be, shamatha, vipassana, mahamudra, vajrayana, lojong, whatever, is engaged with the sublime principle of non-distraction. In other words, giving attention that is dedicated and appropriate to the task, that cherishes the time that we are spending with it. And lastly, we conclude the practice, whatever it may be, with dedication and aspiration prayers. This third sublime principle, the conclusion of the practice, is our focus for today's episode. Before we talk about what's involved with dedication and aspiration per se, it's good to consider what exactly is it that we're dedicating. This is a profound topic in and of itself. Buddhist practice recognizes that engaging in any excellence, any virtuous practice, be it a formal spiritual practice or everyday practices such as generosity, maintaining our vows with integrity, preserving our samaya, which is the promise we make to ourselves, to the Dharma, to our teachers, and so forth, in a solemn way, to be in alignment with our highest aspirations. All of these kinds of practice, from even feeding our pet or a stray animal a little bit of food, all goodness in which we engage, generates what is termed sunam in Tibetan, or merit in its typical English translation. And merit is a very misunderstood topic. It can be understood in a very materialistic way, sort of the cookies you pile up when you do your practice right and well and like a good little person. That's not always the best way to engage in a full-throated, authentic way with what merit is talking about. Merit is quite simply, you could say, the magic, the power, the brilliance from aligning in harmony with our Buddha nature. Whenever we are in sync with our Buddha nature, we feel centered. We know there is a positivity, a momentum, an empowerment that bristles from that. And you could say a lot more words to connect with that sense, but hopefully that gives you an idea. But then what happens with all that merit? Let's say that we're talking about the practice of generosity when we are going about our day and maybe we see someone on the street who is unhoused and seems to be very hungry or cold, and out of the goodness of our heart, in alignment with the generosity and the wish to benefit beings, which is central to our Buddha nature, we give them some money or some food, a sweater we have in our backpack or our car, whatever it may be. And whether we notice it or not, there's this glow, you might say, this intangible yet present and recognizable positivity that accompanies that act in harmony with our Buddha nature. Let's say we don't think much of it. We're glad to have done it and we move on. And then something else happens. We get cold and we wish we hadn't given the sweater away. Or we start worrying, why did I give them money? What if they use it for drugs or alcohol? Or they're just not in their right mind and they can't really make much use of it. Or we start to regret our ability to change the world. We're just one person. How does giving a few dollars to somebody make a difference? All of these ways of thinking, which are very natural and very much a part of human nature, eat away at that positivity, that thrum of goodness that being in harmony with our Buddha nature calls up. Similarly, if we do anything with part of our mind thinking about the status or the reputation or the praise or whatever it may be, some kind of acknowledgement that we'll get for it. Oh, they're such a wonderful practitioner. They practice every morning and every evening, or they do retreat, or they're going to do 3-year retreat, or whatever it may be. That mindset also in contradiction to alignment with the harmony of a Buddha nature that is not tied to the things of this life, such as profit and reputation, status, unbridled hedonism, or whatever it may be, hampers how much merit we actually generate. In a way, it's quite simple, although sometimes discussions of merit can make it seem quite complicated. Merit brings to the heart an intimacy with what it's like to be in harmony with our Buddha nature, to act out of integrity with that Buddha nature. It feels sure. It feels confident. It feels true. It feels good. That goodness, that energy, that momentum has power to fuel our practice, our growth and understanding through listening, contemplating, and meditating, and our progress along the spiritual path. It's a really wonderful ingredient, fuel, nourishment for our spiritual heart and path. It's something very precious that we want to honor, that we want to conserve, and at the same time, we don't want to get puffed up about it, and we don't want to claim. Goodness gracious, how in the world are we going to do that? We dedicate a merit. Lama Zopa does this at the end of every single meditation that he offers on the podcast, because every time you go through this process of listening, contemplating, and then meditating along with the episodes of the PRAJNA SPARKS podcast, you are bristling with merit. And Lama Zopa leads us every time in dedicating that merit to the benefit not only of ourselves, but all beings, all the way to Buddhahood. And we'll talk about why that is in a moment. First, let's talk about how in the world that works. How does just saying some magical words somehow preserve merit from harm or from our own very human, typical ways of being in the world, like regretting something that was actually good, doing something that's good, but with kind of mixed intentionality that isn't always full-on authentic. Actually, it's not the words at all, as we'll see in a moment, but the heart, the very spirit of giving that recognizes abundance, freedom, and our radical interconnection with all that lives, that powers dedication. Thus far, we've seen that every time we engage in any kind of virtue or beneficial activity, positive action, meaning that it is affirming our Buddha nature, mind's true nature, one consequence is that merit arises. But that unaccustomed, unfamiliar with remaining in that mindset of virtue, positivity, alignment with our true nature, we may eat away at that virtue. And that dedication is a way to conserve and direct the positive momentum of merit in a way that aligns with our highest aspirations without either turning it into some kind of concrete thing that we pin down or clinging to it, turning it into a spiritual currency that we can be miserly about. When we look at this act of dedicating, first we could genuinely engage in spiritual practice or other beneficial conduct such that we really do act in a way that is in alignment with the true nature of things, with our own Buddha nature, and merit spontaneously occurs. But due to not dedicating that merit, it simply diminishes over time. Or we might know to share the merit, but it's shared in a way that's not itself aligned with the true nature of things. Like, oh, I am giving this wonderful donation to this great charity, and may this bring me more riches and goodness in this life or in future lives or a better rebirth. We're basically using our virtuous conduct as a kind of barter or trade currency to gain something more. If I give, I'll get. That's not quite what dedication is about. It's a spirit of giving out of a sense of abundance and radical interconnection with beings that is free and loving and sharing, and that doesn't tie the outcome to our own self-interest, be it in the short term or the long run. Another possibility we already looked at. We can actually engage in virtue, such as the example we just looked at, making a huge donation to a genuinely wonderful charity. But the reason is so that other people will praise me, so that I'll gain even more riches or whatever it may be. That doesn't actually generate merit because the merit comes from our heart, our intentionality, not from the act itself. It's not the act that makes merit happen. It's our heart, our pure intent of engaging in the excellence of virtue that develops the merit. The fourth possibility when it comes to dedicating merit we looked at earlier, we can genuinely engage in either spiritual practice or some beneficial activity such as giving money to an individual. And we do it with proper intent then, but then we have remorse later. I shouldn't have done it. Darn it. I really needed that money, or I want to get something out of this, and we didn't. So even though we might have started out with the right intent, even though the act might be good, it's said to be like putting vinegar in milk. It still looks white. It still looks like milk. But when we try to use it like milk, it doesn't act like milk. If you put it in your coffee, it tastes sour. It doesn't have the creaminess of milk. So you're souring your virtue when we couple it with remorse down the road. So those are 4 ways that the merit that comes from virtuous roots can be used up or not accumulated. not brought together. Another example of it is that the merit we generate is like a drop of water. If we lay it on a surface, particularly here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the high desert of the American Southwest, it's going to evaporate. If that same drop of water gets put into a glass or a bucket or the ocean, now it joins with a huge stream, in this case, positivity, momentum, etc., that has the power to endure. So how do we make that kind of dedication? First, I will recite in English a very common dedication prayer in Tibetan Buddhism to be familiar with the words. And then I'll tell you why you shouldn't be too worried about the words. Having attained omniscience through this merit, may we defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, and liberate all beings from this ocean of suffering that is samsara, with its surging waves of birth, aging, illness, and death. As we talked about earlier, dedication itself is not necessarily a prayer. It's not necessarily worded or verbal at all, even in the mind. It's not the words. It's not the thoughts. It's that mindset or even spirit of giving, of abundance, of interconnection that is beyond all description, beyond all dualistic thoughts about it is this and not that, or whatever it may be. When we dedicate with that holistic, open, spacious spirit of giving that doesn't bog things down in dualistic thinking, and we do so with the widest possible scope, not my self-interest, but the interest of all beings, not just in a temporary way, but in the broadest possible way, attaining Buddhahood, complete freedom from samsara, and complete embodiment of mind's true nature. That is the absolute max of dedication. The words I just recited are meant to recall that spirit of giving, that mindset in our hearts. And it helps us to look at all of those aspects of quote unquote ideal dedication. This is an ideal, not in the sense of it's the one perfect way of doing it, and if you don't hit the mark, you fall short. It's ideal in the sense of a positive, thrilling, fully embodied way of dedicating that we set as our heart's aspiration and move towards. So first of all, there's this sense of lacking self-interest. This is probably the single most important part. We're not doing this because we want to gain reputation, or because we think we're going to get more money if we give more money, or because we think we'll get a better rebirth within samsara in the next life, and so forth. Not even positive spiritual benefits like attaining particular levels of meditative stability or rebirth in very heightened states of jhana or meditative concentration, or even liberation and Buddhahood. However much self-interest is involved, there is a diminishment in the power of our spirit of giving with abundance in a radical interconnection with all that lives. So giving to get reputation, huge self-interest. That really cuts things down a lot. Giving so that we can attain positive rebirth in samsara and eventually attain Buddhahood. Definitely less self-interest, but not zero. So it's definitely much less diminishment in the power, and so forth. Then there's the objects of our dedication. Is it just one individual? We're dedicating the merit of the goodness in giving food to a stray dog we saw on the street. Or is it all beings? There too, there is a spectrum of power in our dedication that is in relationship to the beneficiaries of the dedication. May this animal that I'm giving food to not suffer from hunger for a time. as opposed to, may this food that I feed this animal serve as a cause for them attaining enlightenment and freeing all beings. Same act, very different scope in the beneficiaries of the dedication. So you're not limited in your dedication to the object of the action. The smallest action to just one individual gets amplified exponentially when that merit is dedicated to increasingly great numbers of beneficiaries, all the way up to absolutely all beings. And then there's also the scope of the benefit that we use in our dedication. Not just may this dog not be hungry for a time, but may my giving this food to this dog, that meritorious energy, serve as the cause for this being and all beings not only to be free of hunger, strife, and struggle in samsara, but to be free altogether of samsara and attain the ultimate level of Buddhahood, able to bring that true nature of mind within reach of all beings. There too, a differential as to how powerful our dedication is, no matter what the act is. So that gives us a sense of how, in plain speaking, how we can practice to co-create an experience of giving the utmost good Buddhahood to the highest possible number of beneficiaries, all beings, without the slightest clinging to self-interest. Because we only seek to attain Buddhahood for the sake of allowing others to reach that same state, our birthright, the complete and perfect embodiment of Buddhahood, the true nature of mind. This is dedication. This is what we practice at. This is why these words are helpful, but not the be-all and end-all. Rather, they are reminders that our practice can click into, so that we co-create with the words and the meaning to which they point a lived experience of dedication, the spirit of giving in abundance, without self-interest, in a immediate sense of the radical interconnection we share with all that lives. And there's one final little point. The most ideal of the ideals of dedication is that we dedicate merit without any conceptual constructs as to the act, the beneficiary, and ourselves as the actor involved, be it generosity or even dedication itself. These are called the three dimensions of an action: actor, beneficiary, and action. These three dimensions are themselves dualistic concepts. And the only way to engage in any activity, including dedication, without them is to have a realization of emptiness. But that's a real catch-22, because dedication is the way that we can direct our merit in a particular way so that we attain the realization of emptiness. How do we get past this? Luckily, there's a wonderful prayer that allows us to basically piggyback or emulate the great bodhisattvas that are known for the power of their dedication and aspiration prayers. It goes like this. Just as courageous Manjushri knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, in order that I may train following in their footsteps, I completely dedicate all virtue, just so. In this way, we can call on the power of wholeness, non-dualistic being, to power up our practice wherever it is, and to bring us up to the power, the might, and the glory of our true nature, our Buddha nature. May it be so.
This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA SPARKS. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Stay tuned now for a guided meditation. Shivnee is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving us some time out of your day to like, subscribe, share, and review Prajna Sparks. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Prajna Sparks. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit.
For your contemplation for this episode, listen again to the 2 dedication prayers. Connect with the words, the meaning, and find a way to bridge the gap between them and your heart. Find a way to make the words and meaning your own, to bring them into your own lived experience. When you say the words, the experience of the spirit of giving with a sense of abundance, radical interconnection with all that lives, and the aspiration to attain the realization of emptiness that makes all activities just right. Having attained omniscience through this merit, may we defeat the enemy, wrongdoing, and liberate all beings from this ocean of suffering that is samsara, with its surging waves of birth, aging, illness, and death. Just as courageous Manjushri knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, in order that I may train following in their footsteps, I completely dedicate all virtue, just so.
Hello, friends, and welcome to this meditation on dedications. To begin with, let's just take our seat, meaning that whatever we're doing, whatever posture we're in, whether we're seated on a cushion, walking about, driving in our car, laying down listening to this, whatever the case may be, we can take our seat by coming into the present, by allowing whatever is going on for us, whatever thoughts, feelings, emotions, and so forth, to just be there. We don't have to make them stop. We also don't need to get caught up in them. We can simply become present, aware, and we can turn our attention to our physical embodiment, feeling the support of the earth beneath us, the spaciousness of sky above us and around us, and this body right here, right now, as this amazing, beautiful nexus point, complete with all that we need between heaven and earth, embraced and upheld. We can turn our attention to feeling into that and appreciating this moment, this opportunity to practice. As is often our wont, we'll begin by engaging in shamatha, or tranquility meditation, where we cultivate one-pointed attention, letting mind rest lightly and alertly on the meditation object of the breath, or whatever other focal object for meditation feels appropriate to you in this moment. The point here is to cultivate that one-pointed attention where mind does not stray into thoughts, either agitation or dullness, but is very finely tuned, alert, yet resting peacefully, easefully on its meditation object. Let's practice like that for a few minutes. In this calm, alert, peaceful state of mind, we can now engage in analytical meditation, turning to look at our own experience of the goodness that comes from meditation, from practice, the well-being, the merit that is cultivated through practice, whether the practice be study, contemplation, meditation, Dharma recitation, or any of the many other ways that we can generate merit in the mind stream. In this space of meditative inquiry, we can ask, how do I ensure that this merit, this goodness, goes towards what I would like it to, and that it not get squandered or used up or misappropriated elsewhere? How do I ensure that this merit goes towards what I would like, and that it not get used up elsewhere? Allow this meditative inquiry, this question, to sit in your attention. See what feels true in your experience. We know the answer from the Dharma point of view that dedications and aspiration prayers is how we ensure that the merit, the goodness of practice goes fully towards what we would like, definitive well-being of liberation and omniscience. Yet how do we feel into that in our own experience? Take a moment just to look for yourself. Merit fuels dedications, and dedications direct merit. They mutually enhance each other and need each other. As we contemplate dedications, what is essential? The practice of dedication is about joyfully giving away all that goodness that we may have accumulated in this session, in other sessions, throughout our life or lives, gathering it all together, all that goodness, all that potent energy for well-being, and open-handedly giving it away so that all beings may benefit, instead of the miserly mindset that tries to grasp onto it, holding it for my happiness, my well-being in the future, and instead recognizes how wondrous, how joyful to be able to contribute this to all beings. May I work earnestly, tirelessly, so that I can keep cultivating these vast stores of merit to share freely. So take a few moments to actively cultivate this open-handed release and joy that is the spirit of dedication, the crucial fundamental point that dedication is training us in. See if you can call it forth in your mind right now. Wonderful. Thank you for that practice. It's so crucial and fundamental to dig into these essential building blocks of the practice and not skip over them. One of the ways that dedication is generally done is through the recitation of prayers. And again, these dedication prayers are simply tools that are intended to help us spark that inward state of mind of joyfully giving away the goodness and merit to all beings, so that we all, may attain the definitive happiness and well-being of omniscience in Buddhahood, our true nature. So let's conclude this practice right now of dedication with dedication prayers. Again, cultivating this generous, abundant spirit of dedication. Having attained omniscience by this merit, may I defeat the enemy wrongdoing and liberate all beings from this ocean of suffering with its surging waves of birth, aging, illness, and death. Just as courageous Manjushri knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, in order that I may train following in their footsteps, I completely dedicate all virtue. Thank you, friends, for your practice, for your diligence, your joy. It means so much to me and to this world and to all beings that need it so very much these days.